Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. The Christmas period is starting, but it seems like we're the ones handing out the gifts. As this week, it was not quite as fruitful as we wanted it to be, but let's get into the headlines. So Rovers put in an abject performance as they fall to QPR at home. The team looked to bounce back against Wrexham, but were left disappointed as a last-minute equaliser sends Rovers home with just a point. Fans reacted with questions about decisions on and off the pitch, which led to the dropped points in both games. Todd Cantwell remains on the sidelines as Eigor Tjon apparently is set for a move away from the club. But now we focus on two games against Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday as we look to turn around the poor home form and get some points on the board. Mark, what a week it's been.
Well, yeah, it was that QPR performance was as poor as it gets, really, wasn't it? It was but I've seen it all too often midweek at Ewood Park. I think it's the problem. Saturday's a bit different, but a very, very disappointing way to end it, unfortunately.
It was. I mean, let's get into the QPR game first. Let's go back to the other night. We've obviously got our match reaction audio, so we'll listen to that first and then we'll break it down.
Well, back down to earth, mate. Those triple subs absolutely killed us. I felt like first half isn't worth talking about. The quality was absolutely poor from both sides. Really, really bad football from more generally all round. Second half, though, we came out and we started strong, and I thought Hedges was doing well. I thought Good Johnson was getting himself into positions. And I'm really shocked that that was the decision the manager made, because after that, it just went to pot and they got their goal. Didn't even just let him go. And I'm not sure how he let an absolute hobbit win a header in the area and score. But yeah, I thought we killed ourselves there. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was terrible quality throughout. It was just one of those games where nothing was going right, and it was petering out for us. And yeah, they go and get the win, and probably more deserved than us. Yeah, very, very disappointed with the performance. But like we said on the podcast, you can't expect a team to be on peak performance every single game and hit their potential. You're going to get games like this, but I just thought that was particularly poor.
Wow, what a difference a few days makes. That was pretty poor. So we lacked creativity, we lacked energy, we lacked purpose. Any real shape in the middle of the park. The midfield was just non-existent. We have managed to let somebody who's about 4'2" score with a header. Deneva was just completely non-existent defensively. There was another one where he had a volley. And ultimately, we've got to find a way of fixing this home form. It's becoming a joke now, and it's quite a simple recipe for the opposition. Let us have the ball, we won't break you down, and then they'll hit us on the counter. We are, at the minute, only capable of playing without the ball and playing on the counter. So teams will suss that out. We've got to find a way to fix this and fix it quick.
Yeah, two very unhappy fans there. I mean, we couldn't have sounded more miserable if we'd tried. This game, to be honest, looking at the starting lineup, the team effectively picked itself. That's kind of where we're at the moment with all the injuries and everything. We'll get into the Todd Cantwell situation later. But for me, the first half just isn't worth talking about. I thought it was just pretty poor quality from both teams, and it seemed like two teams that just wanted to see the game out and maybe nick something, which obviously ends up happening. The changing point for me was the 73rd minute with the subs. And I've never known a game where you can talk about hardly anything until the 73rd minute. Because I felt like we was doing okay. I thought Hedges was doing well down the left. I thought Good Johnson was getting himself in good situations. Yes, okay, was missing some chances. But up until them subs, it was a pretty poor performance from both sides. But if anyone was going to nick it, it's potentially us. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, possibly. I think I couldn't really look past how poor a performance it was. I know we talked about how there's going to be a lot of games coming up, but we'd also said this is the longest period of time without between games. We played Preston away, but it's not far, on the Friday. This was Wednesday. It's a decent period of time to have that break. They've obviously had a period of time of 2 weeks, the majority of them before that, all right, not good Johnson and Miller, but it wasn't, Miller was poor, but it wasn't necessarily tiredness that I looked at. I thought it was just, they came away to me looking like, do you know, if we can snatch something great, but if it's a draw away from home in the Championship, we'll take that. And not much happened in the game. And I thought the onus was on us to take the game to them. We showed very little, I wouldn't say appetite for it, but I would say quality to do that. Thought we moved the ball far too slow. It's one of the basics when teams go down to 10 men or when it's an attack versus defence in a practice match. Move the ball quickly, shift them from side to side, don't force it. We get far too eager to force it. We get far too eager with the ball, far too eager stepping out from defence. And at times we're not good enough to do that and we leave ourselves vulnerable. And we just make some very poor decisions on the ball. And I put a post out there and I've said some of it is to do with the quality, absolutely. But some of it's to do with coaching. You can coach your team to be defensive and set them up in a block. And I think we do that pretty well. But you've got to coach teams to break them down. And he's got to figure that out. And that is, for me, what the constant thread has been at home in our form since he took over. You've got to remember he took over in March, was it? And is this there's now 15 games where the results have just been appalling. And it's got to go back that far with him now. I think I gave him some slack early on. I'm now starting to say defensively and away from home, I think he sets us up pretty well. I think he's going to be a solid manager for us. But if he's going to be any more than that, he's got to fix this.
Yeah, I mean, we brought up the mental side last week. It's something we've spoken about for quite a while now since this home form has been as it's been. And I don't want to come away from the QPR game too much, but it does feel like there's a bit of a vicious cycle going on. You know, The fans are expecting the players to come and do something and actually take some opportunities, get some goals. But that's not happening because the atmosphere is not great because the players are feeling the pressure. So then it gets worse and worse and worse, and that vicious cycle continues. Now, we could start saying, well, they're professional footballers and they're paid to play and they should ignore that. But they are human beings. And I do understand that when you're playing at home, you can hear the moans and groans a little bit much. And then maybe you're trying something you wouldn't normally try. Maybe you're forcing a situation which you wouldn't normally force. Yeah. Maybe you panic a little bit more at the back. I completely get that. You know, we've all played football at much different levels where you're playing five-a-side with your mates all the way up, you know, to Champions League football. People are human and they're going to suffer. But I think there was some tactical decisions that were confusing for me. And it was the subs, because it wasn't a great performance up until then, but we were not necessarily in control. But if anyone was going to nick a goal, it was probably us. That was my gut feeling. I could be wrong, but the subs were just very, very strange. And I thought Hedges and Gudjohnsen were the two, not necessarily standout performers, but they were the ones that I was looking at that could have actually made it a difference. I thought George Pratt did quite well as well at the back, but that left-hand side seemed to be relatively in control. And Gudjohnsen was getting himself into situations, and then suddenly the changes happen, and Deneve just looked completely out of sorts. And yeah, suddenly it was all QPR, and they were just bossing it down the right-hand side, and which was obviously down our left, their right, and it was just really confusing. It was a real confusing moment, and I don't like triple subs. I think triple subs can change a game too much, like it unsettles a team maybe. Yeah, I just wasn't a fan. I wasn't a fan of it, and I think that was the key moment for me.
Yeah, I remember the COVID season. Well, the season when we went into lockdown and then came back, and they brought 5 subs, didn't they?
And Mowbray used to then make Adam Armstrong one of the subs, and he'd change 3 or 4 at once, and he changed the whole forward line. And I got it at that point because you were changing it at the 60th minute, 70th minute, bringing on pace and saying, do you know what? It was almost treating it as 2 games, and I kind of get that. I think you're right. I mean, you could argue Good Johnson's has been playing international football. Maybe, we don't know, maybe his output got into the red zone and they decided to take him off. I think you're right to mention the mentality and the mental point around the atmosphere. I think it's twofold that. I think you definitely saw the best of Lewis Miller when the atmosphere is red hot at Preston, for example. He's probably had a bit of a dip mentally because he'll have just been working on adrenaline anyway, flying around the world and then coming back. But he was a classic example for me. There's no atmosphere. Now, I think as a professional footballer, you should be able to motivate yourself. However, when you're coming from a red hot atmosphere to walking out, it's half empty, it's freezing, you can see people can't really be asked. You're looking around, QPR players are not really flying in your face. The tempo's down here. But I think that comes down to the manager again. I think partly the manager and partly the players. And you've got to find that fire in your own belly. But I think you're right to point at the subs. However, you look at the bench, the other options you have with Michalski, Ribeiro, Pickering and Litherland. So for me, when we were plugging away and you get to the nearly 75th minute, and all right, we've had a couple of half chances, but nothing's really happened. Why not change it in shape? Why not change
exactly it.
Something? Just changing like for like wasn't real. Deneva's not a massive upgrade on edges. He might be a bit quicker and he's fresher at that point. Other than that, what are you actually, it's not even like we bring Gay on and change the way we're playing and knock it long to him and look for knockdowns. For me, you're just downgrading what you're doing already. And it's not worked for 73 minutes. So that's my frustration with it. I know he's working with his hands tied behind his back in terms of what's on the bench, but with it, not just kind of go, oh, well, what else am I supposed to do? I've got Montgomery. Oh, who's the other midfielder? I'll put Tavares on. It almost felt like tokenistic, like, well, I've got to take him off. He's the only one that can slot in there. And I just think, just mix it up a bit. It wasn't really like we were knocking at the door and you thought, actually, this is working. We're carving them open. They were creating Sodo, like you said. I think just if you're going to change something, at least do it and try and win the game. For me, just change like for like and downgraded and went, oh, well, I hope it gets better.
Yeah, it was just like tossing a couple of people on and hoping for the best. I mean, going back to the motivation thing, this is a conversation that even me and you might not agree on. Mm-hmm. We could be in a group of people who wouldn't agree on. But the question is, whose job is it to motivate a team? So is it the players? They've got to motivate themselves. Is it the manager to motivate them? Is it the fans' job to do it? And this is the thing. This is where we could all argue a different point. So we could say, well, the manager should be motivating his players. That's his job, set them up tactically and get them firing. Then you think, well, hang on, they're men. Motivate yourself. You've paid a lot of money. Motivate yourself to go and do it. And then you think, well, actually, as supporters, the clue's in the name. We should be supporting them and getting them going. But then you think, well, hang on, we're paying customers and this is entertainment. You've got to entertain us. So this is where the vicious circle comes. So I can argue 2 and 4 each one. And that's really, really difficult. And this is my concern. I think we're going to need a couple of lucky results to go our way to get everything back up and running again at Ewood. But going back to the subs, I completely agree with what he's saying. It just seemed really strange that it was like for like, because like you said, it was petering out. The game was petering out, and I was kind of okay with it being how it was on the 70th minute, because I was just waiting for something to change and be like, right, we are now at 0-0. We now have 20 minutes to go for it. Whatever we're going to go, just go for it. And the subs killed it. They really killed it. And I've been calling for Deneva to get some minutes. Yeah. And you're going to hear some real moaning from me when we get to the Wrexham game about Deneva. But with this one, I was like, it just didn't seem like we was either using him to his strengths or we didn't really know what he was doing. It could come to the coach, it could come from coaching, it could come from him, whichever. But he just didn't seem to really know what he was doing. He was pulled out of position, and the shortest player on the pitch goes and scores a header, which it looked to me like it was Deneva's fault. I need to look back a couple more times. Was it Deneva?
I've watched it. Well, I don't know why I did this to myself, but I've just watched the highlights again just to refresh myself before we came on here. Absolutely Deneva's fault. Pratt has the forward who, to be fair, drags him across and probably should have passed into McLaughlin. But the positioning of it, you can see why it's happened because the ball's midair. Deneva's just completely switched off. They're not aware defensively at all. And then, what was it, 2 minutes later, almost an identical thing happened. Deneva switched off again and he rattled the post and it hit Pears' ass and ended up somehow not going in the net. Completely switched off. It was, for me, when you're a sub, different if you're a B-row and you're Pickering, and I think you articulated about the motivation absolutely right. I think it depends on you as an individual, some of that, where your motivation comes from. If you're Pickering and a B-row, though, you're not coming on regardless. You know that because he's brought George Pratt ahead of you. He's not changing shape. He's bringing Deneva on. So I get that you'd be a bit cold coming off there. I think Deneva's got a shout for starting. I think he could feel a bit hard done to for not starting. He's made some real impact. And he came on and looked like he was really cold. Looked half-assed, not really interested. And it really surprised me. It really did. And I'm the same as you. Wait till we get to the Wrexham game with him. But I've been calling for him to have a chance. You know, I've been saying when Alivios, who's having a run of games and needs a break, maybe Hedges goes to the right-hand side. And Deneva has a chance. Maybe change shape was what I was thinking. Get Deneva out far left on attacking, get some pace out them, run at them.
Well, I didn't look at Hedges and Goodjohnson and think they looked tired. And like you say, we don't see all the sports science stuff. There could have been something there. But to me, it looked like they were the two that could have actually done something. I mean, arguably, they're two of our form players. Yeah. So, and it was just to do a triple sub there was just really weird. I mean, Gardner-Hickman, okay, I can understand maybe changing that. And Forshaw, who we'll get on into the Wrexham game, had a great game at Wrexham. So obviously, you know, changing Forshaw and Gardner-Hickman, that's kind of okay. But I just saw us take two form players off, and it was like it was self-sabotage a little bit. Because Ohashi wasn't having a great game, and no. I think Ohashi's got question marks over his future at the moment. Not leaving the club or anything, but how we're going to use him. Because again, to fast forward to the Wrexham game where he's missed some serious chances, it's not like he's this clinical striker. So we've seen Goodjohnson get himself some goals from some situations which he probably shouldn't have scored. We've seen Ohashi miss chances where he should have scored. I'm like, well, surely Ohashi would be the one you would potentially take off and put Gay on and see if Gay and Goodjohnson can do something together. It's just very strange. I mean, I'm not the manager and I don't see training. I don't see how people work together. It's just my gut feeling was that it wasn't a very energetic game. It didn't look like players were necessarily tiring because of the game. They could have all probably put in a little bit more, and we didn't need to do the triple subs how we did. And then the subs that came in on the 82nd just seemed like quite panic subs, and Tavares once again came on and did next to nothing. Baraji is still the most relaxed person I've ever seen on a football play with football. So we've given Ismail some real credit recently over the good form that we'd shown, and it's just a shame that it seemed like the decisions to me was what let us down in this game.
Yeah, and I think we've said time and time again now, if he'd have brought Gay on, gone long ball and thought, do you know what, I'm going to mix it up, gone, then either changed shape and gone him top left of attacking midfield or something, and you lose it that way, I half get that. But I also think he made a massive error at the beginning of the game. For me, when Tronstad's not playing, he played really well at pressing. I think it suits us having that tip of the diamond. Forshaw should have played there all day long. You know my thoughts on Gardner-Hickman. I'd have him sat next to me, and I think he'd be more effective. I think Montgomery, if you're going to have someone for energy, fine, but he's not the main man in the middle of the park, and we were kind of asking him to be. I would have had Forshaw for his experience in doing that Tronstad role, if I'm being honest. Certainly wouldn't have had Gardner Hickman in there. And yeah, it was just then to bring Forshaw on, although he got a bit of a grip of the game, I felt sorry for him because he's not the player you bring on to change a game. Baradji looked composed on the ball, looked like he knows how to use a football, but spent his, 8 minutes at right back. So odd, very odd decisions. I've had enough of talking about QPR. It was horrific watching it.
Yeah, well, the atmosphere at the end wasn't great, and I think a lot of people were then looking to the Wrexham game and getting a little bit excited to be away. We've seen a lot of comments about how good the away fans are. Lewis Miller's called it out as well, just saying. And I quite like Lewis Miller, his attitude and his energy. And he's a very honest person. I think that's the Australian in him. He seems to be a very honest person. But obviously he's called the home fans out, saying that the atmosphere is not great effectively. That's reading between the lines, it's what he said. And that the away fans are great. And we go to Wrexham and the away fans were absolutely spot on. And we ended up getting a pretty decent result there, but it wasn't the result we wanted. So let's listen to the match reaction of the Wrexham game.
That is a brutal end to a game. Not a chance was that a free kick. I need someone to teach me the body barge rule, because I just don't understand when it's given and when it isn't, because it feels like when we do it, it's a foul. When someone does it to us, it's not. So, yeah, if someone can actually teach me that rule. I've watched a lot of football, I've played a lot of football, and I still don't get it. But anyway, by the by, that was brutal. I had a whole thing ready to go, singing the praises of Pears. Thought he made some great saves, coming well for crosses. I thought Forshaw looked solid. Even Gay came on and did well. So a lot of the players that we have called out over the past few months all stepped up and did what they needed to do. I thought Pratt, McLaughlin and Miller were rocks at the back. Hedges, superb again, my boy Hedges. Good Johnson, clinical when we needed him to. But it was just the Alamo at the end. And we were wasteful. And we've got to call out Ohashi for that chance. That's ridiculous to miss the chance that he did. I get that it's football, but we miss so many high XG shots. It's ridiculous. And then coming into the end, let's discuss the end. So for me, you've got to point the fingers at Deneva. When you're running through like that as often as you are, you've got to have the smarts to go into the corner and waste some seconds. He could have easily wasted enough time for us to see that game through. And I think the manager's going to go absolutely mad at him. You could see Pears screaming at him and others. That was ridiculous because everyone was making such an effort, and for him to go and be wasteful. Baradji did it a little bit, but at least he dribbled and wasted some time. But yeah, I'm really upset with some individual decisions at the end there. But credit where it's due, the lads looked on their arse, they looked tired, and they nearly went and got a really good 3 points. But a point's decent, but I think off the back of the QPR game, that's why we're disappointed, because we were so close to having a good week and it's just not happened. But let's break it down.
Well, Mark, I think we need to look at the difference between home and away performances. There's definitely a difference in belief, but worryingly, it looked like there was a difference in effort from the game in midweek. The players looked far more up for it. I think if we're looking at breaking it down, obviously we'll do that a bit more on Monday, but Forshaw makes such a difference just because compared to midweek, it was like having Tronstad there in the sense of someone was actually holding the position, which is quite useful in the middle of the park. I thought he did all right as well. My worry was we basically camped in a 5-3
for most of the second half, and you're just inviting pressure. Never in a million years was that a free kick, but you are inviting pressure. I thought we were relatively comfortable. I thought George Pratt had an absolutely tremendous game. He was playing on instinct a bit at Preston, but I thought today he handled Kiefer Moore, who's an experienced bruiser of a championship striker, really well. And there was some positive things, but overall, if you're going away to Wrexham, you're 1-0 up, and you think you need to sit on that lead for the last 35, 40 minutes, it's a bit of a damning indictment on the quality of your squad. Never mind. Let's break it down. It's always good fun.
I was furious. Could you tell?
Yeah, I could a little bit, Mike. But I'm going to go a little bit off base. I'm going to go positive for now.
Cool.
I thought Pears played. If that was a brand new keeper that had stepped in, we go, oh my God, we found our new number one. I don't think we have, but I thought he was very good. I did.
Agreed.
I thought George Pratt, like I said in there, at Preston, I thought he played on instinct. I've watched him now 3 games. Now, QPR, I think we can write off for everybody. He's a better centre-half than Lewis Miller. I potentially think he's better than Sean McLaughlin, the way he played at weekend. I thought he looked composed. Handling Kiefer Moore is no mean feat. I've seen Dom Hyam, I've seen Carter, I've seen Wharton given Lenihan going back then, given nightmares by Kiefer Moore. There was once that he got the better of him. I thought he was very, very good. I thought Hedges was exactly what Ryan Hedges has been all season. Works his absolute knackers off. Puts in a good shift, puts some good balls in. I thought he was very good. I thought Alabiosu, particularly in the first half, was great. Forshaw until he put Gordon Hickman alongside him when he had him sitting and he tired. I thought controlled the game. He was playing 2-touch football. He showed his experience. He knew when to intercept, when to press. He looked quality, to be fair to him. I thought Maristra, when he was getting on the ball, was good. Or Hashi's pressing was good. Everything up until his finishing was very good. And Good Johnson, we haven't had a player that could score a goal like that for a long time. So there are lots of positives there. And actually going into the Tuesday game without jumping out, tomorrow night's against Ipswich, I can see a blueprint here for we'll play better against Ipswich than we will against QPR. But there are other stuff we're going to have to mention. But there were some real positives from it. I came away.
Let's stick on the positives for a bit, because I think we need to, because you can't write off 95 minutes of football where if that final whistle goes on the 95th minute, we're just singing the praises of every single player and everyone to do with Blackburn Rovers. And then suddenly one last minute goal goes in and that all changes. I don't want it to be like that. I think the reason I was furious is because of I just don't like referees anymore. I don't like the body barge rule. I don't get it, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I thought Forshaw. So when I was making my notes watching it, Forshaw, just his name just kept coming up and coming up. He just looked really experienced and solid. And the words I kept coming back to for the team was relaxed and controlled.
Yeah,
we seemed like we just had the whole thing in the bag for. Well, not the result, but just the performance just looked like we were just in control the whole time. And when Wrexham had their opportunities, and teams are going to get their opportunities, Wrexham are a good side. Pears was there and he was doing his thing. The crosses he was coming for, he was coming into crowds, he was claiming stuff. When he punched, he got distance on it. He had to make some good saves. There was one where someone had to clear it off the line, but it actually came off Pears making the save. I completely agree with what you're saying. If you just dropped in now and you saw Blackburn for the first time, you think Blackburn had a really good goalkeeper in Pears. They had a really good players on that pitch. Obviously, we know more because we know that form is a bit up and down. But I thought he had a fantastic game. I was so surprised when Gay come on. I was like, "Geez, who's this? He's like little twinkle toes just dancing through." Oh, where's this come from? This is what we needed. But yeah, I was so happy with how things were going. The subs again they tended to work. I thought Henriksen looked a little bit off. I think that drive from Manchester's really causing him issues. Deneva, we'll get to him. Baraji again looked quite calm. So everything seemed to be going. So the subs at this point, we didn't do a triple sub, but we did 3 relatively close. And that's kind of when we started to be backs to the wall a little bit. I think you could tell the team was tiring, but we still looked like we was working really well as a team. It looked calm across the back. The passes were nice and crisp. They weren't pressing very well because, I mean, Kiefer Moore's not going to give you much pace on the press. And it seemed like we just kind of had the kids' number, Wrexham's number a little bit on when they were trying to press us.
Yeah, I think the word controlled is absolutely spot on. I think for me, when you look back at the 75th minute when he makes those subs, one of the big problems with it was Henriksen's not played for a while, but he put Gardner-Hickman alongside Forshaw. And then he went with Henriksen on the right and Deneva on the left, really. So we lost a bit of the play in the middle. Forshaw was controlling the show, was able to sit a bit more, didn't need to do too much physical. All of a sudden was needed to do far more physical because there's no one in front of him. He's having to get all the way across to the right. And then in some senses, you think, oh, well, at least when I get to halfway, the left's covered. Well, Gardner-Hickman, I don't think he understands positioning at all. I'll come on to him in a minute. But Forshaw struggled at that point and we lost complete control other than sitting in shape and going, right, break us down. We had no control from that moment onwards. And we were limited then to a few breakaways that some were just launched forward and some actually, to be fair, were decent breakaways. But that was the key for me. It wasn't so much the personnel change, it was that shape change. We lost it in the middle of the park. And that meant the ball just kept coming back and back and back. We had to sit deeper. And you do think from sort of 75th minute, what was it, 20 minutes, bit more, you're asking for trouble. Although they weren't knocking at the door. They did have the one where, you're right, Pears got a nick on it and then Pratt cleared it off the line. And then they had the one that Pears made a great save and then it went just over. They just started to build some momentum. It was still incredibly ridiculous at the end. But I think it was our own doing it. It was a tactical tweak. And I'm going to come on to Gardner-Hickman. I do not see what people see in him. I think his positional sense is appalling. He runs around a lot. I'm not fit, but get me fit, which would take a challenge. I'll run around for Rovers, not a problem. I was talking to my brother on the way home, and he said, I remember Nicky Reid running around a lot, and he was crap as well. I just don't get it. I think Rovers fans have been blinded a bit by the fact that he's a bit here, there, and everywhere. He'll win the ball, and then he just gives it away. But it's positionally for me. He's like a child playing in the middle of the park. He runs around after the ball, and he just leaves whoever's with it. It must be a nightmare to play with him. And I'm worried about that moving forward because we've obviously got some knocks and injuries and stuff. But I think it was tactically. The more I've watched it back, it was that change. And I understand what he was doing because their fullbacks were coming forward. I think he thought we'll try and give ourselves an extra bit of cover there. But it didn't work because Henriksen can't do that role. And, well, Deneva just doesn't do that role. So he did try and stretch it. So I've had a pop at him for not changing it in one game when it was 0-0. I'm not having a pop at him for changing it, but it didn't work and he should have changed it back or tweaked it again.
So the Gardner-Hickman thing, I'm coming more onto your side than I was. He was someone I had a gut feeling about. I'd seen a few things. And F-Scout's done some stats for us, and I promised to him we will get these stats out there compared to Travis. It's just because we've got so many games that we're having to review and preview, we're struggling to get to these stats. But I'm starting to see a little bit more of be concerned with him. I think he would be okay if he was next to someone solid. If we had one centre mid that was just there, like Tronstad, week in, week out, and you could just drop in someone else next to Tronstad. It could be Forshaw, it could be Tavares, it could be Baraji when he comes up, whoever. I think if Gardner-Hickman can drop in and out of there, I think we would see him settle. I think we're probably expecting a little bit too much of him at the moment because he has been a utility man, and he's very much similar to what we were saying about JRC, of just constantly being moved around and not really getting that positional sense. And he's probably suffering with that. I think he's a player that could potentially. He looks like he's got a great attitude. He's got good size. He's got good all of that. I just think he needs probably a little bit more time to settle in the position, and that's what we haven't got, is time, because we're really struggling for numbers. So I do get that. Henriksen, when he came on, he just looks raw. There's something there, but he just looks raw. He's not ready for playing at the level we need him to. So that looks completely out of sorts. Ohashi, I am concerned with Ohashi. It's something we've said before about him. I mean, I called out quite early on, I'd like to see him in the number 10 more than up front, because I just feel like with his energy and unselfish play, I think he could make a real good career of being in that number 10. His decision making for when he's in front of goal, when you look back at that first goal he scored, that little thing, and I was like, that is some fast thinking. That is instincts. That's what we want. And suddenly those instincts have gone.
Yeah.
And that's a bit worrying for me, because I thought that they were instincts, and it looked like, they're not, because when you're effectively clean through on goal, one-on-one with the goalkeeper, any striker at this level is going to do one of two things. He's either going to smash the ball as hard as he can or place it. It's like Ohashi's controller completely disconnected and he pressed the wrong button. It was just weird what happened. And then everyone's looking at him as if to say, what you're doing. So that was a concern. But then Deneva coming on, I just thought he was going to be the player that we've spoken about with Cargbo and all of these that have come on with pace that are just going to absolutely terrify, because all they're going to do is knock it past you and run. And we've said that if you've just played 70 odd minutes and then you have someone like that coming on, you're going to be terrified. But he just did the wrong thing every single time.
Yep.
And we had opportunities to waste time. And the only person that wasted time, and I was called out for it actually on X because I said no one did, but obviously Pears did and got his yellow card for it. But it seemed like instead of just going to the corner and just wasting 30 seconds, he'd go and then just cross it to no one.
Yeah.
Or he'd cross it into random space. And it's like, okay, so instead of wasting 30 seconds in the corner, you've given the ball back after about 6 seconds. So then everyone then suddenly needs to reset because the counter-attacks come in. So then they get more and more tired. It's like, no, get in the corner, let the ball be there, let everyone reset into their position. Then you'll get someone coming to help, hopefully. And you're either going to get a corner, a throw, or they're going to get a corner and a throw. Don't let them get the ball out. So even if we're in that corner, in possession, as long as the ball goes out, you've wasted enough time, and it gives everyone the chance to reset. And I was absolutely screaming at him.
Well, you're right. Gay coming on that early was surprising, but when you've got Gay, get him in the corner. And Deneva, early on, he was released into him coming on, and he looked like he was going towards goal, and then fluffed it, and then he did the same thing again, but then went towards the corner flag, and I thought he's learned. Perfect. And then he cut back onto his right foot, which he can't use, and just put this pathetic ball into the box. But because he's checked back and wasted a second, it's meant the midfield have thought, oh, hello, we'll try and get near him. So they've started to commit. So it was the worst time to lose the ball. It's worse than just crossing it early because they'd actually got out, and then they could counter on us. And then he did something ridiculous about a minute later, and I'm thinking, you're fast. Use your attributes, even if it was direct to goal. But they were just...
That's been dribble to goal, and you might get a penalty, you might get a corner or something.
They were just nothing. Now, he might be suffering with confidence. I mean, after that QPR game, he probably is. But he's had a good run of games before that, and I think he's done all right. It's surprising. But it looked... I mean, once he's naive, 3 times he's stupid. He deserved... firing squad at him for after that.
Well, that's the thing, because Baraggi did something similar, but then he learned. So Baraggi did a little dribble inside, tried to take someone on, and to be fair, he'd taken on a couple and had success, but he gave the ball away. But he didn't do it again. But like you say, it was happening time and again, and it was driving me insane.
But I've seen now, if you watch the games back, I have seen at least one player every game have a pop at Duneva. Now, I've seen Ismail do it with Marishta, and I thought, on to Marishta. Thought Marishta and Ohashi's finishing. I mean, that movement that he did when he should have scored, but everything up to that, you don't see it properly on the telly. I've watched it back and it looks nothing. It was a real clever check back. It was quick. It offset to the defender. It was perfect. I thought he was going to do the dink. I'm glad you mentioned the derby game. I thought that dink was coming, or he could have placed it in the corner. It was class up until the finish, and then it was like he had a brain fart. He could have laid it off. He could have. There was almost too many things he could have done. But him and Marishta were at the forefront of everything good we were doing because of their pressing, their interplay, his willingness to run in behind, stretch them, create space for Marishta. So you kind of logically now you look at the team, you think, where does Cantwell fit in? Probably there. It's an upgrade in quality. But he couldn't do what Ohashi does. And I think when you are playing away from home or tomorrow night against Ipswich, that's key. He's got to be better in front of goal, though. He scored 4 goals this season. It's not good enough because he can finish. Pre-season, they were playing balls into him early. He was getting in behind. He looks really confident. I don't know if the signings of Johnson maybe have offset him, or I'm not quite sure, but it's not like he's not a first name on the team sheet. I think he would be playing him and fitting Cantwell somewhere else when he was early on in the season. So I don't quite know what's up with Ohashi. You're right. You would think it would be instinct after that derby game. Is he second guessing himself now? I'm hoping so in a weird way, because that means he can find it again. But I think some of the stuff he was doing was key to our play. So I think there's enough there in him to be starting. I'm not thinking, start Gay instead. I think absolutely what he's doing is key to the team. I thought Marishta playing in that 10 role, spot on. I think their interplay is really good. But Duneva's got to learn. He's got to smarten up. 3 times it's not good enough. And don't
get me wrong, I'm not saying he cost us the game.
No.
But if he'd done the right thing in those situations, I think the game would have been over before we even get to the dodgy body barge decision.
He's got to be better with the ball or make better decisions. And people roll at him in between each one. And maybe his confidence is on the floor and he's almost thinking, I don't want the ball here. Maybe that's where he's at. But you've got to be better than that. I think we'd have called anybody out for that. And I think when you've got Gay on the
we just called Dolan about it, didn't we?
Yeah. And we called Hedges obviously famously at Preston. But I think maybe Gay's got to take a bit more responsibility there and go over and just get the ball off him almost in the corner. Give it me. I'm, big Mukhtar, I'll get it. Come and get the ball off me. But I think we've got to move on to the fact that I've watched it back on telly. It was right in front of me. So I was in the upper tier, but it was right in front of me. And they've had a couple of soft challenges. I mean, the ref, for me, looked like he was giving them... His whistle was in his mouth the moment they were going down. We were going down. I mean, there's one with McLaughlin, and it's not a free kick. He went down, and they gave a corner, and it's not a free kick. But Grant Hanley used to do it all the time. I see every defender do it. The defender goes down, and an attacker's behind them. It's annoying as hell as a home team, but they get a free kick. He couldn't wait to give everything to them, I felt. I thought that one, the assistant referee was watching it, and you could see he was going to give a free kick. His flag was almost up. Hedges, he doesn't even body check him. There was no force in it. He put his foot in front of his foot and just scooped the ball away. The body contact was minimal. The lad, if you're doing a shoulder barge, I mean, Shearer used to do it in the day, didn't he? Send them over the advertising boards. If you're doing a shoulder barge, you fall to the side if you're not set right. He was falling forwards. That can't physically happen. And it was spitting distance to the lineup. And he could not wait to get his flag up. And I know you shouldn't be relying on that, but come on, get these decisions right. That's appalling. And I just felt Phil Parkinson, I think I'm going to put him up there with Russell Martin on my hit list because he does some bloody whinging. He was in his ear at half time. He's in their ear at full time. He was still whinging. I don't know what he was whinging about then, but I think it has an impact. I really do. I think it has a massive impact. He gave him a free kick. If you don't give him that free kick, they don't get a draw. Done. I think it's not a big, massively intimidating atmosphere. It's a nice little ground to go to. It's a dump. The ticket machines don't work, but it's an hour. You can park outside. The fans were quite friendly. It was all right. But I thought the Welsh were tough. And he's probably English, but he's chucked himself on the floor. They've given him a free kick. Absolute dog mess of a decision. And you should defend it better, but we didn't. And we'll take the point, but you feel shortchanged from it.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I was angry, it's not just that we dropped points. It's just football is pissing me off.
I get it.
It's just like, so when I used to play outfield, I'm not the fastest, but, I'm 6'4", I'm big lad. I'm not going to beat someone with pace. But every time I tried to use my strength, and I wasn't even dragging anyone back, I wasn't cheating, it was always like, I can't do that, he's smaller than you. That was the kind of comments I would get from referees. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, you tell him to stop running as fast as me and I'll stop using my strength on him. Because if he's allowed to run as fast as he can, I'm allowed to use my strength. And I would have little words with referees and stuff, and I'd get away with a few because you kill the referees with kindness and stuff. But the thing with me watching these games, and it was the same, there was a similar one in Preston and other ones, I just feel like it's so inconsistent when they're called that a footballer doesn't know when to use their strength. I mean, don't get me wrong, you look around our side, they're not big lads.
No.
So no one should really go flying like they did. And he would, like you say, they was looking for it, and the ref will get himself onto Disney, and now they've got their nice little storyline that's going to make the clip next time they play about that dramatic last-minute equaliser. They've got their storyline now. But it was just really frustrating that foul was given, because there was a few that were like that, and I just don't understand this body barge rule anymore, because it wasn't brutal, it wasn't anything like that. It was just sheer strength, and I think that this is where football's being killed a little bit, where you're not allowed to use strength, but all they want is fast players that can't be touched. Anyone with skill or anything like that, it kind of goes by the wayside. They just want fast players that you can't touch, and it just really pisses me off. When it came to the free kick and dealing with it, to be honest, they just stuck it in there, and it just, it just dropped and kind of went. It's frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. Looking back at the game, I think it's actually quite a good point. I think to go away and get a point near enough at anywhere in the EFL is good. Wrexham aren't a bad side whatsoever. I think what made it disappointed was for me, because when we're recording the podcast, obviously we're reviewing 2 games. So I'm looking back at this being QPR and Wrexham, and the QPR game just set me up to be really pissed off the fact that we didn't get 3 points at Wrexham. If you'd said to me, if we'd got obviously 3 points at QPR, and then the exact same thing happened at Wrexham, I probably would have been okay. But I felt like we was very close to making up for the QPR game, and now we haven't. Does that make sense?
Complete sense. I think you go, do you know what? It's 4 points from the week. It's not too bad. But ultimately, it was a mess that week. It isn't a bad point at all in isolation, but you can't get a point from the week, and it's not good enough. And it puts pressure on us now. And you were looking at the fixtures, the other teams getting results, you start going, oh, geez, we're only 3 points off of the relegation zone. I know the league's congested, but we've had a good run of results, particularly away from home, and we're still not in a great position. And you're looking at our run of home games now and thinking the pressure's on. All of a sudden we have to potentially beat Ipswich. We have to potentially, Sheffield Wednesday, you're looking at it. I don't know if anybody else is, but they're idiots if they think that that's a foregone conclusion, because I've seen teams like that, but I've seen Sheffield Wednesday in particular come to Ewood when we should be beating them, and we don't. I don't know how many fans we're giving them this time, but it's just... It's starting to get to a point now where it's getting quite important that we get some results on the board, I think. But if you look at some of the previous results we've had, we're getting random results at random places.
which is why I'm sometimes just like, I go into each game kind of as its own singular entity, because I mean, every time I'm looking at the league, no matter whether we win, lose, or draw, we're 17th, 18th, or 19th. It seems like no matter what we do, we're just going to be there. I mean, before we move on to the Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday game, I did forget to ask you about your 3 words reactions from QPR. Have you got any from QPR and the Wrexham that you want to shout out?
But the Wrexham one, we had poor game management from Liam Mack. Gary Gorilla, take and draw beforehand. I get that, and that is where I'm at, but it still feels sick. And ironically, he's put a sickening emoji. I mean, someone called Mike Beaty learned to time waste. There was quite a funny thing that one of the Wrexham fans have put on one of our posts. I tell you what, they like a bite, those Wrexham fans. Might clip up that little bit about the Welsh being soft and whack it out there. But he said something around, I can't believe how much you were time wasting. Now, they are notorious for this under Phil Parkinson. But he said he thought if pears stood still any longer, there'd have been a pear tree growing. Fair, yeah.
That's not bad.
There was one just after he got booked that made me really chuckle. He put the ball in front of the line. Obviously, you're never going to be allowed that. Went back, ignored them, and then they're like, get it back on the line, then put it back, turn around, really chuckled. And the Wrexham fans were fuming. And I was like, do you know what, Ainsley Pears? I'm slowly starting to really like you, and I don't know where it's come from.
I was having a touch of the Pickfords, wasn't there, with some of what he was doing. There was one where he took the goal kick and he took it to the opposite side of the 6-yard box and doing all of that stuff. The thing is, when it comes to time wasting, it's not necessarily the time wasting as in adding it on to the end, not adding on to it's calming stuff down, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, I was quite happy with how he was doing things, especially when we're trying to obviously relax a little bit. But I felt like the officials were definitely more towards Wrexham that game than being fair, and that's why I got frustrated at the end, because if they let's say it wasn't a body barge, they'd literally just won the ball, crossed it in, and then all this carnage happened and they scored. I don't think I would have been as angry. I think it's because I just felt like it wasn't a foul, and I was just really frustrated that football seems to have gone extremely soft. And that's why, because that reaction was, I recorded it really, really close to after, because I was really pissed off.
Yeah.
And it was just, I was just like, where's football going? Where's our game going that you can't even just put a shoulder into someone anymore?
I couldn't record it because the away end was a bit tasty at the end, but it was so I got in the car about 5 minutes later. But it was one of them that you watched. It was almost in slow motion. You watched what Hedges was doing. You knew he'd won the ball. You knew it wasn't a foul, but you knew he was going to give it. It's like when, like I was saying about McLaughlin, when McLaughlin was travelling back and the striker breathes on him and the defender goes down. 99 times out of 100, you know it's not a free kick, but the defender just gets a free kick anyway. And football does your head in. And you watched it and you went, oh, you've fallen for it. You've fallen for it right in front of you. And that's what it was. It was that. It's blatant cheating, if we're being honest. But if they want to cheat to get a point against former Premier League champions, I understand it.
Exactly. Well, at least we've played a European game for the first time in a while.
That's it. My nephew's never got to experience Rovers going abroad. It was lovely. To be fair, I'm just going to get this out there. It was what an easy trip to get to. It was an hour and 15 minutes, straight to the ground, parked outside at the university. Couldn't get in the ground because the tickets weren't working. They sent me to the bottom tier. I had an upper tier ticket. They had to manually scan their own tickets that they had in the turnstile because the turnstiles weren't working. Then they sent me upstairs. But do you know what? It was nice. Had a nice day with the nephew. We got a point. Sung some songs. Sung a new one about Eigor Tjon, which was always good. And sung a lot about Ainsley Pears having no hair, but we're not caring. It was enjoyable.
And now we move on to Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday, 2 home games. Most teams would be very excited to have 2 games in a row.
Yeah.
Rovers fans are now thinking, I wish there were 2 away.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ipswich is the rescheduled one after our abandoned game. So is that going to add some extra energy for our players thinking, well, actually, this should be us? Because I'd like to think that they're up for it.
Well, it should do. And Ipswich are on a good run of form, but we are a very different team. We play a different way, the whole shaboogle. I mean, you do know it's not stopped raining for 24 hours here, and it's absolutely battering it down. It's supposed to do the same for the next 24 hours. So, but I talked to the groundsman on Saturday. He came and said hello. He goes to every away game, and he assured me that the pitch will be fine until the 80th minute if we're losing. That is, I did.
And the sprinklers come on.
That is a joke, Kieran McKenna. I know you don't like wet pitches. We will dry it out with the towel for you. Don't cry too much. I think the players should be bang up for this. This should be one that motivates themselves for. They should be going, do you know what? We've already beaten you once. We know we don't concede after the 80th minute when we're 1-0 up. That never happens. We would definitely have won the game. So ironic that the Wrexham game came before this. But I think we've more chance against Ipswich than we do against Sheffield Wednesday. I know it's a typical Blackburn Rovers thing just anyway, but I think the way we play, to sit back and hit them on the counter and frustrate them, if we can keep them out for half an hour and just keep it, because there was a point in that first game where Leif Davis was playing almost centre midfield, left wing, striker, and we couldn't pick him up. If we can keep a lid on them for half an hour, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I think they'll come at us. I think that there's a lot of interchanging of positions. If we can get to grips with that and keep it at 0-0, I think we'll grow into the game, and I think we'll have as much chance against Ipswich as we do against Sheffield Wednesday, simply because we can't break teams down. We know we struggle with that. I think this is a game that could suit us, but you've got to keep them out for that first 20 minutes. Completely
agree. I think there's probably a little bit less expectation as well around Ewood Park when you're playing Ipswich, and maybe there's a little bit more relaxed play from the team. It's such a Rovers thing that we could go and get 6 points out of these 2 games. And next week we're just talking about how everything's rosy and we're mid-table and we're pushing. I mean, we'll probably we could get 6 points and still be 17th because that's what we do. But what's going to be interesting is how he's going to set up. He seems pretty set on this formation now. Can you see any changes there?
No, I think they've worked on this. Him and Adam Owen have worked on this formation in the international break. They wanted to get more attacking opportunities. I know people joke about it, but we are about 6th in the XG table, so we are creating chances. We look more solid defensively, so I don't think there'll be any changes. I'll be shocked if Forshaw doesn't start in the centre of the park. I think he has to. It's whether he can recover in time. He's not played any football at all, and then he's played Saturday. He'll recover Sunday. Obviously, he's a pro, an experienced pro. He'll know what to do, but you've not played much football. Is he 34 now? To go again? No, he's made a Weetabix, so he's recovered Sunday. They'll do a little bit of light work today, more around just key elements of the game. A lot of it in the classroom, a little bit on the pitch, just acting out. And then he'll go again tomorrow. He's not going to last the 90, but hopefully he can play. And Marishta will play. I think the only one's Gardner Hitman. Now, they've said Montgomery's out, haven't they, for about 5 weeks. So there's not really any option. I can't see him throwing Baraji in. So I think it'll be the same team. I think he'll just go again.
Yeah, I think so. I think he was quite happy with the performance. So I think he will stick with it. I think the Todd Cantwell situation is very interesting, and we do need to talk about that. So we're getting mixed reviews. He's put out on social media that he's hyperextended his knee, and it was to do with that. And then there's other reports saying, well, actually, he had a kick on his knee. Is there some sort of clause in his contract to do with, if he plays more games, that he's going to get more money and stuff like that? Are people reading too much into it?
I think they're reading too much into it. I think if you were doing that and you were going to sell him, would you have sold him in the summer? What you could argue his value was increasing, but it's not now, because someone's going to look at him now and say, well, he's not been fit for 2 months. I don't see the benefit in doing what, if that was the case. If it was 50 games, you play in 49 and just say, we're not playing him again, or whatever way you were dressing up, you wouldn't take it to 47. Listen, Todd Cantwell's been a player. If you look back at his history at Blackburn Rovers, he's been out with a cold 3 times, I think. I've never known it in the history.
Yeah, he's soft, isn't he?
He's not playing if he's not 100% right. And Ismail was very honest the other day. I think, to his credit, Ismail is an honest guy, sometimes too much, actually. And he said he won't play if he's not 100%. And if he's thinking about it in his brain, he's not a player that can play. Now, that then brings question marks around, is that a captain? Certainly not the old school captain, is it, where you bandage yourself up and you get back out there? Lewis Miller, for example, I don't think has played at 100% all season, and he just turns back up. Cantwell can't do that. Now, fine, we're not getting to the ins and outs of that. But I think that's all it is. I think it's he can feel it. There's probably not much showing up on a system, on a scan, but he can feel it. So he's not playing. He's telling them, I can feel it. They're not playing him. I don't think he's somebody who can play at 80%. I think he has to be right. Well, I'm not sure you can ever be that right as a professional footballer. So I genuinely think that's all it is. I think it's just down to that. And is he a bit soft for it? We'd probably all say yes. Get yourself out there. But if he actually can't perform and he's not going to be right, I've also seen him not course through games, that's right, but be non-existent in games. And if that's the Todd Cantwell you're going to get, then no, I want him to get right. But yeah, I think people read into all sorts of stuff. They love a conspiracy theory in general, particularly Blackburn Rovers. I've seen people having a pop at the club saying, oh, well, they should have communicated it. To be fair, they did say he had a knock. We thought he'd be back quicker, and it was his knee. And they have said various bits. I think it's just because people don't listen to Ismail because his interviews are repetitive and boring. But that's probably all that is.
And so are we. So people, we're repetitive and boring, but hey ho. The interesting thing as well is when he does come back, where's he going to play? Because now the formation's changed and things have changed. I actually would like to see him next to Tronstad in that centre mid. I'd like to see what he's like there, controlling the game a little bit, maybe being a little bit more creative, because I can't see them dropping Gudjonsson. Well, they're just not going to drop Gudjonsson. And let's assume they're going to keep this formation. I think he has got a soft spot for Ohashi, and the only person that could really play there that's kind of on form would be Marishta, and I don't think he would move Marishta there. I think Marishta would be staying at number 10, which means where would Cantwell play? And I just think that I could see him trying to shoehorn him in next to Tronstad.
Yeah, when he's changed the formation again, hasn't he? So they're playing with a 5 and then they're playing 1 sitting and 2 in front. When he's playing that, he probably has to play there. Or the problem with playing him where Ohashi plays is what I'd said before. He doesn't have the intensity of the press, and you need that because Gudjonsson doesn't have that either. When he started playing this 5-3-2, 5-2-1-2, whatever it was more like Man United play, to be fair, where it's 3 at the back, a 4, and then there was the 2 in front, and Marishta was going wide one way, or Hashi was going wide to the left. If you were doing that, I think Cantwell plays on the left of those quite well. But I think you lose the intensity that he's found a bit of a formula with Ohashi and Marishta and their intensity, and that's when this formation's looked at its best. I know what you mean. I think he can control a football game, and sitting him in there is probably not a bad shout. I don't think you can afford to play him further up because you lose the intensity. It becomes too predictable as a formation. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think Todd Cantwell they were planning on replacing him in the summer anyway. I think Marishta was supposed to be doing that. Possibly Baraji to some extent supposed to be doing that. But you're not going to get rid of him if he's not playing football. So they need to find him and find a place for him quick.
No, it's going to be interesting, that one. And the last thing that we need to talk about is Eigor Tjon. There's now rumours that he has no intention on staying at the club and that he's going to be going to Arsenal. If true, apparently it's meant to be to do with broken promises of football. But we've said Ismail's already come out and said that the likes of Tjon aren't ready to be playing for the club. It's going to be disappointing if he goes. because it's going to be another talent that's leaving for next to nothing.
And I get he wants to play football. I get it. What is he, 17? He's playing for, he's playing for England under 17s a little bit. He didn't come on much in the World Cup, but he'd been in a dressing room around people on £30,000-40,000 a week. He'll be on nowhere near that. And the advantage of being at Blackburn Rovers is you should get near the first team quicker. We know those reasons. But you can't do it if he's not ready. And from what I've seen, I've only seen snippets of him in the first team. He doesn't look ready. He's not going to get in ahead of the others. There's no point having him sat on the bench and not playing. He needs to play football. Otherwise, he's not going to develop. So I think they're doing the right thing with him. If he's impatient, I don't think they can just play him to sort of make him sign a deal, because then ultimately at some point, if he's not ready, he's going to drop out. And you can do more harm than good to a young player if they're not ready.
Yeah.
I think it's in the forward positions is one of the few positions you can play a forward, but when they're young and they're raw, but he's not shown me anything yet that says he's ready yet. He's obviously a massive talent, loads of potential. But if he wants to go to Arsenal, he's not going to get near their first team for a hell of a long time. So I feel a bit not sorry for the club. Yeah, but then again, we nicked him from Rochdale for a similar sort of reason. So he's ambitious, fine. To me, I'd be, if I was advising him, saying, well, knuckle down, listen to what they want you to develop, maybe go on loan for the half season and prove in League One or the SPL, because we know that's a doddle, as we always talk about. Go and look good, and then come back and you'll get in their first team next year. Or go to Arsenal and get an absolute bucket load of cash and go on loan to the SPL and rip it up instead. I understand it.
Yeah, it doesn't help that we're not exactly having a fantastic start to the season. It's been a mixed bag of form, and he's probably thinking, well, why can't I get my opportunity? It's not like the people you've got on there, ripping up trees. I could play next to Good Johnson and do a job.
That's one of the things, isn't it? Let's be honest. In training, he's probably got a bucket load of ability, and he's probably looking in training when they're doing basic drills and looking at a certain number 9 and thinking he struggles to control the ball, I'm better than him. And I listened to Dunny's interview on Tippy Tappy Football, and he talked about his son, Isaac Dunn, looking at people in training and saying, but I'm better than him, I should be playing. Now, part of that's what drives you to become a professional. You have to have that belief. So he will have that, and he's probably not wrong in some senses. But I don't know, it's just throwing him in the answer if he's not ready. Would he have had more impact than Gay? Maybe he would. This is where going out of the cup in round 1 bites you on the arse.
I said last year, didn't I? It's why we didn't see. Tote would have got his chance a lot earlier at the club.
Yeah.
Last year, if he'd had a run out, because he would have had games. It's the same with these young lads. You can't. It's those games. I know Michalski had his opportunity and didn't exactly take it in the cup. But he's still got an experience, and we still got to see something.
And he'll learn so much from that. And he did make an absolute howler, but he recovered from it, and I love that. And people have said this, is that it'll set him back. Not having that. I mean, you're obviously far more of an expert in the goalkeeping, but he made a howler and didn't crumble. He reacted well. He was and I think mentally that will do him a world of good, and experience-wise. So on him, I think they did the right thing bringing Pears back into the fold. But I mean, he's the main one I'm excited about. You look at the England team he's been playing in. It's bizarre. It's him representing Blackburn Rovers, and it's just a ream of Champions League English teams. So he's the one that we were better getting tied down in some senses, albeit an English striker is a commodity, aren't they? They're fortune makers.
Well, watch this space. It could all just be rumours. It could be them playing their hands and just trying to force something. We don't know until it happens. So we're not going to speculate too much, but it was something we needed to talk about. But Mark, I'm ready for this week. I'm ready for these 2 games. How many points do you think we're going to have? What we're going to be talking about next week? How many points?
4.
I'm going to go with 6. I'm going to be confident.
Let's
Let's be confident and have 6.
We'll win tomorrow night. Kieran McKenna will be crying and whinging like a little baby again. And then we'll ball into Sheffield Wednesday. Hopefully we'll win. But, yeah.
Well, there we go. But everyone put their comments down below. Check out RX, our Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all our socials. Subscribe to our videos on YouTube. Share us. We're trying to grow still. And obviously, we try and keep the socials active, but we have got jobs. We've talked about that time and again. But Mark, thanks for joining me this week.
No worries, buddy. Just on those socials, mate, we have just a couple of quick things. I got stopped at weekend by Rover Jr. And his dad said, "Is Mike with you?" I said, "No." Does that make me the best looking bald content creator? It's becoming a thing, Mike. That then throws us into the world of TikTok furthermore. Ollie Collins on there, Jolly Ollie, as the Rovers fans know him, clipped up a little video we sent him when we were just wondering where he was, and has used it to try and flog a bloody head shaver. Has he even sent you one?
He hasn't, mate. Bit harsh, to be honest. I thought we was building up a little bit of a relationship, and he can't even throw me a free head shaver. It's disgusting behaviour. Bang
out of order. Anyone who wants to call him out on it, we'll have a new hashtag. Get Mike the shaver. He needs to step up, really, doesn't he?
I know. Shocking behaviour. But no, Mark, cheers for joining me this week.
No worries, buddy. You have a lovely week. Enjoy 6 points, and then this time next week we'll sit and talk about how we are still in 17th, but feeling better about it.
Yeah, we'll be 6 points better off, but we'll be in the same position. That's the Rovers thing. But yeah, have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time.